So, because my next video, or should I say videos now, is a big project that is only halfway complete as of the time of recording this, I just thought I'd pump out a quick video, before I upload the first of the two. So, because I'm following Time Lord Victorious, I thought I might as well review the audios. Let's start with the short trips as they're in the 8th Doctor bundle, and I'm only going to review the 8th Doctor bundle. I'm not going to review Genetics of the Daleks, and I'm not going to review Echoes of Extinction. So Master Thief was written by Sophie Isles, and it's essentially the Master robbing a bank. We get into the head of Delgado's Master as he slowly loses his sanity. This is because the weapon he uses devolves its victims, which I'll get to later. And the devolved people of the world he's on have psychic properties that feed off people's personalities. I really don't want to spoil this one, as there's not much to this, but the devil is in the detail. Lesser Evils, written by Simon Gurrier, is more directly tied with Time Lord Victorious, as we see a Keturah evaluate the life on a planet that the Ainley Master happens to be on. We see him try and defend one particular race, risking his life for it. Honestly, these are both great explorations of the Master's character, and I'd recommend them both easily. He Kills Me Not is the first of the 8th Doctor trilogy, and it's the introduction to Brian the Ood 2. So basically, a woman and her wife are running away from Brian the Ood as he's trying to assassinate one of them. Then the Doctor arrives, literally wanting to see a statue, but gets involved because he wonders why this desert planet isn't an ocean planet. It's a western, a fun one at that. The American accents are hit or miss. I think one of the actors is actually American as well, so sorry. What is a hit is Brian the Ood Assassin. He's great! He is unhinged, yet a gentleman. He's one of those characters where you'd have him over for dinner, but as soon as you turn your back, you're dead. He also talks of his translation unit, called Mr. Bull. It's adorable, yet terrifying. Paul McGann is excellent as always, and so's the rest of the cast. Yeah, it's the characters who sell us, as all have their own motives and personalities, not all of which are particularly amazing, which makes the plot duller, but Brian the Ood makes up for it. As you can tell, I stan Brian the Ood, and he is one of my favourite parts of The Night, the Fool and the Dead so far. I'm reading it at the time of writing, and have read it at the time of recording. But yeah, great start to the 8th Doctor's path, but it continues on into The Enemy of My Enemy, where the Doctor and the Daleks form an alliance, as there is a threat to time that could mutually affect these two parties. We naturally get introduced to each of the Dalek Time Squad, as each of them enter the scene one by one. Nick Briggs gives them all distinct voices, and, more commendably, writer Tracy Ann Baines clearly shows off the different personalities of these Daleks. The Executioner wants nothing more than to kill, but the scientist always has another agenda. The strategist keeps them all in check, and the head honcho is the commander. In a way, these Daleks act as the Doctor's companions in the story, which creates really interesting dynamics. The changing of time makes for an interesting story concept, with the Raxians. Their regime gives way to a really compelling story and also ties into what I think the main theme of Time Lord Victorious is: death, and how we should see and understand it. The Devolver is also an interesting concept, which was further expanded here after Master Thief. There is nothing more for me to say other than the Dalek Time Squad were great here from the beginning to the end. Much better than the Daleks web series. The Daleks and the Doctor go to the dark times at the end, which should lead into the ending of The Night, the Fool and the Dead, and then leading into All Flesh is Grass. Now, Mutually Assured Destruction is set after All Flesh is Grass, where the Doctor and the Daleks have a falling out. Now, I get that we're meant to be thrown into this without warning, and we're forced to pick up the pieces. However, this just feels like a sequel to a story we never got to see, which is really disorientating and off-putting. Sure, the Doctor and the Daleks being enemies again I get, with the whole cargo plot. I don't. Please note, I listened to this audio and wrote this review, and actually am recording this before I read all flesh is grass. Speaking of the cargo, they're the last two survivors of a race the Daleks plundered. They seem to be an allegory for eugenics, but everything seemed a bit rushed. This is because they only come into the plot halfway through. This audio seems to be a bombastic finale to the trilogy and nothing more. Even though there are connections to the other two, this one feels more disjointed, so it doesn't even do its job right. I will say the cast were really good. Paul McGann was enthusiastic as always, and Nick Briggs hits it out of the park again as the Dalek Time Squad, who admittedly were also written brilliantly. Samantha Bayard does an amazing job as Tiska, and Will Scolding is good as Groth, but these characters are kind of forgettable. I actually had to look up their names, even though I wrote this review the day I listened to it. Overall, I wasn't a fan of this conclusion. Sure, it's enjoyable, but I wasn't satisfied with this ending. Now, I do recommend the entire trilogy as a whole and the short trips. They're great and do expand on some things that you may have wondered about if you are just reading the books, which I would say you have to read the books if you want Time Lord Victorious, because that's the main story. This is an origin story for Brian the Ood in a way, and it also tells us more about what the Eighth Doctor and the Daleks have done. So, if you want more of the Dalek Time Squad, more of Brian the Ood, and just more Paul McGann, I recommend this. So, that's all from me. Until next time, where I... Oh boy, Series 6 is a big season in a way. I'll see you guys then.